United States Army Chaplain Center and School, its mission to deliver religious support readiness by educating, training, and resourcing exceptional religious support professionals, chaplains, and chaplain assistants of unmatched character, competence, and connection for the total Army, active, Guard, and Reserve. With a proud history and heritage, USACS for nearly 100 years has been the heart and the home of the Chaplain Corps, developing called and committed servant leaders who excel in taking care of soldiers and families by nurturing the living, caring for the wounded, and honoring the fallen. The Army Chaplain School traces its roots to World War I, when it became clear that soldiers needed Army-trained ministers to serve and lead them through the crucible of war. The first session of the school commenced on March 1st, 1918 at Fort Monroe, Virginia, and graduated an amazing 915 soldier chaplains that year, chaplains who were destined for immediate combat duty in the unforgiving trenches of Europe. By November of 1918, with a military force of almost 4 million soldiers, the Army codified a requirement of one chaplain for every 1,200 men. Activated originally for only our nation's times of war, World War II saw more than 7,000 chaplains pass through the chaplain school's hallowed halls. With each standing up at the schoolhouse, training evolved and expanded until in 1950, the Army Chaplain School finally became a permanent military educational institution and also welcomed a new member to the religious support team, the chaplain assistant. After the Korean conflict, the Vietnam War, the Cold War, and Desert Storm. After 15 different locations, a legacy of dedicated professionals, and numerous temporary facilities, each bringing expansion and evolution to the Corps. In 1996, the U.S. Army Chaplain Center and School ultimately earned its own campus and dedicated permanent facility at the Army's largest initial entry training location, beautiful Fort Jackson, South Carolina. Victory starts here. Though the past is proud, the future is even brighter. Currently, the United States Army Chaplain Corps is undergoing transformation to move from what has been to what will be, in order to better meet the needs of the current and future force. With that transformation comes the evolution of the U.S. Army Chaplain Center and School to the Religious Leadership Academy, fully integrated with the U.S. Army Institute for Religious Leadership and fully prepared to deliver formative and timely education and training for U.S. Army chaplains and religious affairs specialists as the Army Chief Chaplain's institutional training base. The U.S. Army Religious Leadership Academy is a gifted collection of staff, faculty, and cadre consisting of called officers, committed non-commissioned officers, and dedicated civilian professionals whose credentials are the students they serve. Chaplains and religious affairs specialists they receive from and send to every corner of today's total Army. From 1918 to present, responsive to three sacred constituents, our commanders, our Corps, and our students, in all our locations, through all our missions, the United States Army Religious Leadership Academy, the heart and the home of the Chaplain Corps, has graduated tens of thousands of chaplains and religious affairs specialists, all with the same heartbeat, to bring soldiers to God and God to soldiers. These called and committed servant leaders of unmatched character, competence, and connection excel in taking care of soldiers and families from all across our Army by nurturing the living, caring for the wounded, and honoring the fallen. Pro Deo et Patria, for God and country.
Good morning, and welcome to the graduation ceremony for the Chaplain Basic Officer Leader Course, Class 26-001. On behalf of Chaplain Colonel Thomas Helms, the United States Army Institute for Religious Leadership Commandant, and Command Sergeant Major Varian Montgomery, we extend a special welcome to our distinguished guests, to the chaplain endorsers, family, and friends of our graduates. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the entrance of the official party and remain standing for the playing of the national anthem and the invocation given by the class chaplain, First Lieutenant Ollie Degree.
Let us pray. Gracious and loving God, we gather today in gratitude for this moment of accomplishment and calling. We give thanks for these graduates who have answered not only a profession, but a sacred responsibility to care for the hearts, minds, and spirits of those who serve. As it is written in book of Micah 6:8, He has shown you, O mortal, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you? To act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. May this charge guide these chaplains, grant them wisdom to guide, compassion to listen, and courage to stand faithfully beside those in times of trial and triumph alike. Prepare them to serve in diverse places and among many people. Help them to be instruments of peace, sources of hope, and steadfast presence in moments of uncertainty. May they embody understanding across differences and offer care that reflects dignity, respect, and grace to all. We also give thanks for the families, friends, mentors who have supported them along this way. Bless them for their sacrifice and encouragement. Go before these chaplains, O God. Guide their steps, steady their hearts, and use them as a light in places where it is needed most. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, you may be seated. On 29 July 1775, the Continental Congress established the U.S. Army Chaplain Corps. Since its inception, more than 25,000 chaplains have served in the armies of the United States during every major conflict, intervention, humanitarian endeavor, and peacekeeping operation in our nation's history. These men and women represent our nation's various churches, cathedrals, synagogues, and mosques to ensure every soldier's First Amendment right to the free exercise of religion. From the inception of the Chaplain Corps until today, chaplains are present to minister to America's most valued treasure, her sons and daughters. Chaplains during the American Revolution set the tone. Men such as William Emerson, the first chaplain to minister to American soldiers on a battlefield, and Israel Evans, who oversaw the construction of the Army's first chapel in 1782. During America's great national crisis of the Civil War, the chaplain corps grew to include a significant number of Catholic chaplains. The first Jewish chaplain, the first African American chaplain, and the first female chaplain. Muslim chaplains joined the corps in the early 1900s, and more recently, Buddhist and Hindu chaplains also joined the corps. Reflecting the religious diversification of American society today, the chaplain corps now includes ministers from more than 130 different denominations and faith groups, dedicated to the corps' sacred values and who provide religious support in cooperation without compromise. Chaplains serve with faithfulness and valor. The United States has presented the Medal of Honor to 7 Army chaplains. The most recent recipient awarded posthumously was Chaplain Emil J. Capon in 2013 for his service in the Korean War. Since the birth of our nation, nearly 300 Army chaplains have given the last full measure of devotion and were killed in action or died as a result of combat service. Unit ministry teams today continue to deploy around the world to difficult and dangerous places, and in doing so exemplify outstanding patriotism, selfless service, and dedication in ministering to soldiers and their families. The uniform, tactics, and faiths have changed since 1775, but the mission of the Army Chaplain Corps has remained constant: to accompany our nation's soldiers into battle and, through a powerful ministry of presence, to nurture the living, care for the wounded, and honor the fallen. For God and country, pro Deo et Patria. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our Commandant, Chaplain Colonel Thomas Helms.
Well, welcome here today. I met many of you last night. Okay? We had a great dining function last night. And today, the main purpose of us being here is to honor our graduates. Let me talk a little bit about the IRL. The Institute for Religious Leadership is the largest chaplaincy producing school of its kind in the world. As a matter of fact, if we took all of our NATO allies, all of their schools, and put them together, it's about the size of ours. So it's big, but I want you to know that it's not the size that makes it truly great. What makes the IRL truly great is our students. Our students truly have sacrificed more than we might realize in order to be here in the first place. And they want to be something. They come here to be truly ministers for our military. But the other thing that makes today really possible are 3 different groups of people. So they didn't just get here on their own. They have hopes and dreams, but there were people who got them here. So I want to give thanks for 3 different groups of people this morning. First, for our faculty and staff. So the Chaplain Corps continues to send its very best here. And as the students will tell you, they each had the very best. If you were involved in instructing, teaching, or affecting this class, if you please stand. So our small group leaders, our others, if we can please give a round of applause. Thank you so very much. Secondly, as our chaplains come into the military, we want them to be in the military, but not feel like they belong 100% to the military, okay? Truly, our endorsers play a vital role in the lives of our chaplains. So our chaplains must be in 2 different worlds and do it very well. Our very best chaplains are those that remain connected to their endorsers and to the original reasons why they came in. Please, if you're an endorser, please stand up. So we consider your chaplains as on loan to the military. Thank you so very much for supporting them and for all that you'll continue to do for them. And then finally, behind every chaplain is a story. Okay, I love to get the stories of why they came in. Many times it has to do with their family members and or friends, former family members who served, another minister or chaplain that they knew. If you are a family member or friend of a chaplain here, please stand. Chaplains, please stand up and turn around and face your loved ones and give them a round of applause. Truly, for those who are here and also for the many who are not able to be here, we give you thanks for the sacrifices that you have made so that they could be here, and then the continued incredible journey of ministry that we look forward to. A couple words about our guest speaker. So we're delighted to be able to have Karen Meeker here today. Ministry as a chaplain involves many different things. But at the brigade level and above, it oftentimes is enabling somebody else's ministry. As I was standing out here this morning, a chaplain came up and gave me yet another Karen Meeker story. Okay? And those of you know Karen know that there are many across the chaplain corps. This chaplain told me of the deep impact many times in their life that Karen had on them from delivering the sad news as an assignments officer that they were not going to Fort Carson, that they were going to Fort Bliss and getting ready to deploy, and it would be good for them. Okay? Down to taking this particular chaplain and teaching this chaplain how to do a parachute landing fall. Okay? Off the platform, preparing them for their special forces assignment, and then continued in the military. Ministry, at the end of the day, is one-on-one, and Karen Meeker does it extraordinarily well. So we're excited to have her here. Let us continue the ceremony.
Chaplain Colonel Karen Meeker grew up in Huntington Mills, Pennsylvania. She is endorsed by the United Methodist Church and is an elder in the Susquehanna Conference. Chaplain Meeker is a graduate of Bucknell University and holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in Classics. She received her Master's in Divinity from Harvard Divinity School. She received her CPE, or Clinical Pastoral Education, at Massachusetts General Hospital in Boston. Chaplain Meeker enlisted in the Army in 1986 and graduated basic as a soldier of the cycle at Fort Dix, New Jersey. 4 years later, she received a commission after graduating college on an ROTC scholarship. Some of her previous assignments include Command Chaplain, U.S. AFRICOM, Stuttgart, Germany, Chaplain for the 45th Surgeon General of the U.S. Army Command Chaplain for the U.S. Army Medical Command in Washington, D.C., the Command Chaplain for 8th Army, Republic of Korea, the Senior Chaplain, Clinical of Landstuhl Regional Medical Center, and Command Chaplain for the Regional Health Command in Europe, the 1st Armored Division Chaplain at Fort Bliss, Texas, Chaplain for CENTCOM Forward in Jordan, and the Executive Office for the Chief of Chaplains, to name a few. Chaplain Meeker's military schools include the Army War College Fellowship at the Institute of World Politics in Washington, D.C., the Command and General Staff College at Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, the Chaplain Captain Career Course at Fort Jackson, Pathfinder School, and Officer Honor Graduate, Basic Airborne School at Fort Moore, Georgia, and Advanced Airborne School at Fort Bragg. Chaplain Meeker's awards and badges, some of which include the Legion of Merit, 3 Oak Clusters, the Defense Meritorious Service Medal, the Meritorious Service Medal, the Joint Commendation Medal, Army Commendation Medal, the Joint Service Achievement Medal, the Army Achievement Medal, and the Joint Unit Meritorious Award. She has also received her Pathfinder badge, her Master Parachutist badge, and also the German Parachutist Badge. She is a noble patron of armor and of the Order of St. Martin of Tours. She was inducted into the Army Women's Foundation Hall of Fame in 2020. She is also recognized by the Harvard Divinity School by receiving the 2020 Reverend Dr. Gomes Honorary Divinity Alumna Award. Chaplain Meeker enjoys serving soldiers and their families through worship, preaching, discipleship, outreach, and enjoying competing in occasional endurance events, such as 5 Ironmans. So, ladies and gentlemen, at this time, please give a warm welcome to our guest speaker, Chaplain Colonel Meeker.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning.
Good morning, Commandant and Sergeant Major. Good morning, faculty and staff of the largest and best chaplain school in the world. Good morning and welcome to our DoD endorsers, ecclesiastical endorsers, I'd like to say. You may be using an old term there, but maybe it's time to bring old things back into the new. I appreciate our partnership and our unique and dynamic relationship in this endeavor where we serve our soldiers in the United States Army. And for you endorsers and in my current role, serving soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Guardians and their families, so that all our service members and loved ones can get the religious support that they so deserve, as they have raised their right hand and sworn an oath to defend our country, our way of life, our freedom with their very lives, if necessary. So thank you for what you do, and I look forward to continuing that relationship and building on our great legacy as we move forward. And congratulations to Class 26001 on your graduation. And welcome to all the loved ones that have supported and support these here graduates today. Thank you for what you have already done and what you will do in the future. Our chaplain families are some of the most extraordinary families in our Army. And you do it a gratis, without rank, without pay, and sometimes without appreciation. But please know, we appreciate you in the Chaplain Corps, and your God appreciates you. We were just talking at the table last night about a daughter of a chaplain who touched another Army family during a deployment. And 10, 15 years later, she shared how much that chaplain's daughter meant to her family and to her life. So thank you for what you do and what you're going to do. God bless you. The past 2 weeks have been rather extraordinary. Not only did you complete the capstone, but we also sent a shuttle of astronauts to make a lap around the moon. And if you heard some of their initial reflections on that trip, you heard things like, let's let the science wait. I need to reflect and share with you my emotions. How I felt an overwhelming feeling of gratitude to be making a lap around the moon from Earth. Every one of them spoke of gratitude. Some spoke of their gratitude to God, gratitude to their families, to their teammates, and to the whole crew, both on the planet and in that shuttle that made it possible. And the country in which we live, free citizens, a freedom that has been paid in blood, a vision of freedom that's been given to us by our God, that leads to exploration, innovation, that results in such things as flying around the moon. Extraordinary times we live in. There's also been, in these 2 weeks, extraordinary changes in the leadership of our Army and our Chaplain Corps. We've also had the rescue of a downed pilot in Iran. For those of you who have been part of the military, you know how extraordinary that mission was. Very dangerous, full of risk. A pilot down in an unknown location in the mountains of Iran, a country in which we have hostilities with. His first communication back to the command was, "God is good." Full of gratitude to God that he survived the crash, that he's in communication back with the United States, that he is the hope of rescue, and that God is his strength. When your life is on the line, it often boils down to 3 words. Your vision, which at times may seem complex and confusing, all of a sudden clears up. We have full clarity when our life is on the line. What is most important in our lives? God, our loved ones, our families. Those astronauts, some of them said it was extraordinary to be doing a lap around the moon, to see what they were seeing, and yet they wanted to get back to their families. Those basic human desires and instincts to belong, to be loved and to love, to serve and to sacrifice. That is how God has created us. And God has called you to ministry, to mission, both within your religious organization, who is forming and forging you into the minister, pastor, priest, rabbi, imam, and now in the uniform of the United States Army. A sacred cloth, a sacred mission to serve and support the souls of our soldiers. A high and lofty call. There are changes happening in our Chaplain Corps, and as you've heard from the Secretary of War, who's made it very clear that on some of our uniforms, chaplains will not be wearing rank, only the religious insignia. And that religious insignia should be in a prominent place so that when other soldiers see the uniform of the chaplain, they will see the religious insignia. There are 2 reasons for this. One is to show the divine authority in which a chaplain serves. You are first a religious ministry professional, formed and shaped by your community of faith. And now you've just been shaped and formed by the United States Army Institute of Religious Leadership at the Chaplain's Officer Basic Leaders Course, so that you are equipped to begin your ministry in uniform as an Army chaplain. When you arrive to your unit, you are expected to first be a religious ministry professional and an Army chaplain. When we take the rank off of some of our uniforms, it does not mean that you are losing your rank. You are still a commissioned officer in the United States Army, and you are expected to hold and uphold the highest standards of integrity and the values of our nation and our military. But your religious insignia will be your calling card. And when you talk with other people about that, because there'll be a lot of questions. What does that mean, chaplain? You can tell them about your calling from God. You can share with them the divine authority in which we as chaplains represent, which is over the military. It's over the government. That is a high and humbling call and role to step into. For our candidates, you have more time to prepare, and I charge you to prepare every single day for that time you will enter the Army as a chaplain. For those of you who are heading off, every day we've got to take up that commitment and that devotion to represent the best of America. And the best of America is our values, which we get from God. This is the 250th anniversary of our country. I was in Philadelphia last June, celebrating the 250th anniversary of the United States Army. I got to do morning prayers at Christ Church, which is a few blocks from Independence Mall and Independence Hall. That's where our founders started, on their knees in worship to God. And then they would get on their horses and go up to Independence Hall and deliberate the birth of a new nation that 250 years later we enjoy the fruits of. The vision from God at the time, it's incredible in our Declaration of Independence, one of the greatest documents ever written. Was that vision complete at the time of the signing of the Declaration of Independence? No. It is up to every generation for us to carry that vision forward. And as chaplains in the United States Army, we represent that dignity, respect, acknowledging that there is a God, and we are not. It's a voice that we bring at all levels. I'm part of the Total Force Fitness effort to redefine and refine Total Force Fitness across the Department of War. And the spiritual domain is foundational to that Total Force Fitness. And there is a spiritual fitness component as a part of Total Force Fitness. And within that definition of spiritual fitness, God will lead in that definition. Spiritual readiness is strength from God. Our leadership recognizes, and science backs up, that there is a direct correlation of a service member's strong spiritual core is by far the best protection against life's ups and downs. An old warrior king, King David, said in his last speech, 2 Samuel chapter 22, verse 40, and it's repeated in Psalm 18, "You, O God, have armed me with strength for the battle." As we have great technology, great innovation today, it is still the spirit of the soldier that either sustains or erodes that strength. And as chaplains, we are being empowered once again to go to our legacy, for we stand on the shoulders of those and many here today that have served in that legacy of bringing God to soldiers and soldiers to God. You have a high and lofty mission, but it is a mission that God has called you to. He will equip you for it. And together, we make a strong and dynamic team. Chaplains, religious affairs specialists, our retiree community, our endorsers, our family members, our communities of faith across the United States and the world. Imagine bringing all of that together for the cause of freedom, not just for our nation, but for the world. When I was serving with the 101st as a Deputy Division Chaplain in Afghanistan in 2008, we brought over a rabbi for Passover. We mobilized our chaplains for the High and Holy season, and our rabbi came over, he got a jersey, and he did Seder meal. That next day, one of the airmen who had celebrated Seder was killed in action. It was a great comfort to the family for them to know that the last night of their loved one was spent remembering the Seder meal. And then we were able to get the rabbi to escort the remains back to Dover because he was leaving to go back to the States. That meant, again, everything to the family to know that an Army chaplain rabbi was there when their loved one needed it most. So students, graduates now, chaplains, have your bags ready. Have your chaplain kits stocked and ready to go. But most importantly, be prayed up, have your whole armor on, and be ready to get in the trenches with your soldiers and their loved ones to bring them the greatest power of God into their lives. I look forward to serving with you, and we'll see you on the high ground. God bless you.
Ma'am, on behalf of CHBOLC Class 26001, we would like to thank you for your words of wisdom and your mentorship. Live the call fiercely.
Chaplain Lucas Reese, the course manager for the Chaplain Basic Officer Leader course, will now present the class to the Commandant.
CHBOLC, attention!
Live the call fiercely!
Sir, the students of CHBOLC Class 26001 have met all requirements for graduation and are prepared to receive their diplomas. Present the class. Take seats.
At this time, the USRO Commandant, Chaplain Helms, presents special awards to the graduates demonstrating excellence in 4 categories: academics, leadership, communication, and physical fitness. In addition to the course diploma, the awardees receive the Commandant's Coin of Excellence. The Distinguished Honor Graduate is the student with the highest academic standing in the class. Chaplain Colonel Retired Gibbs and Sergeant Major Retired Stock will present the Distinguished Honor Graduate with a certificate of membership and a coin from the U.S. Army Chaplain Corps Regimental Association. The U.S. Army Chaplain Corps Regimental Association is dedicated to serving retired or former Army chaplains and religious affairs specialists of each component and their family members. The Distinguished Honor Graduate for the Chaplain Basic Officer Leader Course, Class 26-001 is Chaplain Captain Michael Chung. J. Capon Award for Distinguished Leadership is presented to the student best displaying the attributes and competencies of an Army leader and the Chaplain Corps' sacred values. The award is named in honor of Chaplain Capon, who, during the Korean War, repeatedly risked his own life to save the lives of hundreds of fellow Americans. His extraordinary courage, faith, and leadership inspired thousands of prisoners to survive hellish conditions, resist enemy indoctrination, and retain their faith in God and country. The recipient of the Emil Capon Award for Excellence in Leadership for Class 26-001 is Chaplain First Lieutenant Mohammed Yusufi. The Joshua Thomas Award is presented to the student displaying the best oral and written communications throughout the course. The award is named in honor of Chaplain Thomas, an American minister pressed by the British to provide religious services prior to the assault on Fort McHenry. Reverend Thomas delivered a message entitled, "Thou shalt not kill," and predicted defeat for British aggressors. His boldness, clarity, and communication inspire others to this day. The recipient of the Joshua Thomas Award for Excellence in Communications for Class 26-001 is Chaplain First Lieutenant Brian Wood. The John M. Whitehead Award is presented to the students demonstrating physical fitness, mental toughness, and care for the success of fellow students throughout the course. It is named in honor of the chaplain who was awarded the first Medal of Honor. Chaplain Whitehead displayed physical fitness and mental toughness during the Civil War Battle of Stones River. His Medal of Honor citation reads that Chaplain Whitehead went to the front during a desperate confrontation and, unaided, carried to the rear several casualties. Demonstrating the ability to lead by example and provide purpose, direction, and motivation to his peers in the area of physical fitness. The recipient of the John M. Whitehead Award for Class 26001 is Chaplain First Lieutenant Brendan Key. And now, the Usual Commandant, Chaplain Helms, presents diplomas to the remaining graduates, assisted by Command Sergeant Major Montgomery and Chaplain Reese. Please hold your applause until the announcement of all graduates is complete. The graduates of the Chaplain Officer Basic Leader Course, Class 26001 are Chaplain Captain Aaron B. Campbell, Chaplain Captain Yonatan Elazar Belota, Chaplain Captain Shawana Elwood, Chaplain Captain Solomon Parento, Chaplain Captain James Kim, Chaplain Captain Jude Cootie, Chaplain Captain Luan Wynn, Chaplain Captain Joshua Ortega, Chaplain Captain Jason Stundle, Chaplain First Lieutenant Alexis Clodfelter, Chaplain First Lieutenant Courtney Dandridge, Levi Gonsberg. Chaplain First Lieutenant Gail Gahunko. Chaplain First Lieutenant Devin Johnson.
Next. Holy fuck.
Chaplain First Lieutenant Rochelle Kuzu. Chaplain First Lieutenant Maria Malone. Chaplain First Lieutenant Vivian Nabule. Chaplain First Lieutenant Sophie Nagel. Chaplain First Lieutenant Eddie Omarogbe. Chaplain First Lieutenant Shalom Ornstein. Chaplain First Lieutenant Danilo Paez Trinidad. Chaplain First Lieutenant Olufemi Samuel. Chaplain First Lieutenant Ethan Todd. Chaplain First Lieutenant Christopher Wetlor. First Lieutenant Brevin Bazar. First Lieutenant Ollie DeGree. First Lieutenant Richard Goughton. First Lieutenant Gonzalez Marco Estrada. First Lieutenant Joseph Fortenberry. First Lieutenant Anthony Kennedy. First Lieutenant Kyle Katowski. First Lieutenant Tyler Lindmark. First Lieutenant Hayden O'Bannon. First Lieutenant Michael Pendergrass. First Lieutenant Thomas Fender. First Lieutenant Andrew Trotter. Second Lieutenant Jacob Allen. Second Lieutenant Saul Balandrano. Second Lieutenant Andrew Bissonette. Second Lieutenant Sogat Cope. Second Lieutenant Mercedes DeReese. Second Lieutenant Jacob Dost. Second Lieutenant Garrett Edwards. Second Lieutenant Brandon Foster. Second Lieutenant David Glarum. Second Lieutenant Matthew Graymont. Second Lieutenant David Hernandez. Second Lieutenant Kieta Jones. Second Lieutenant Daniel Love. Second Lieutenant Michael Martin. Second Lieutenant Gabriel Malero. Second Lieutenant Sean Muka. Second Lieutenant Julian Pauls. Second Lieutenant Chad Sherman. Second Lieutenant Aaron Terry. Second Lieutenant Daniel Tilbury. Second Lieutenant George Trudeau. Second Lieutenant Esther Uche. Second Lieutenant Yupeng Zhu. Ladies and gentlemen, we present the graduates of the Chaplain Basic Officer Leader Course, Class 26-001. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the singing of Soldiers of God, the Army Song, and the departure of the official party.
High, high.
God and country.
Live all fiercely!
Live, hey! Forward, halt!
Ladies and gentlemen, before you leave Fort Jackson, we highly encourage you to visit the Chaplain Corps Museum located at 10100 Liberty Division Road on the USERO campus and open today until 4 p.m. Thank you so much for your attendance and support, both in person and virtually. This concludes the ceremony. Prodeo in Patria, for God and country. And as a final note, if all endorsers can stand by and move to the front, we would like to take a group photo. For God and country, enjoy the rest of your day.